You and I have talked for a number of years about the sale of this bike. I've had other people interested, and I think we just deserve in Robbie's memory to do it justice. And we're real happy about it. Like I said, I hate to see it go, but glad to see where it's going.
Evel Knievel inspired millions of us with his courage and perseverance. We're building a museum so you can relive those memories and be reinvigorated with that spirit of bravery.
My name is Evel Knievel. I'm a professional daredevil.
Along the way, we meet people involved in the life, the times, and the legacy of the King of Daredevils. Here with their stories is your host, Joe Friday.
Hey, howdy. You remember Lathan from that last show that we did when he shared those harrowing stories of archaeology and years of digging and traveling and researching to gather a critical mass, actually all of Evel Knievel's artifacts, and put together a museum along with our friend Mike Patterson. And when we signed off, Lathan and I were preparing to unearth this famous motorcycle that launched over Caesar's Palace fountains. And that's just what we did. So Lathan joins us again today. Thanks, Lathan.
Howdy, Joe Friday.
Before we unpack that trip to Chicagoland, I wanted to get a quick update about that Twin Falls event.
50th anniversary, Twin Falls, Idaho, Snake River Canyon.
Awesome.
Band,
September
snacks.
1st.
Lots of snacks. September 1st. Come be in the movie, docuseries, parade. Krysten Knievel is going to sing her face off. It'll be a miniature Evil Days, so to speak.
Oh, man, I never made it to Evil Days.
Well, that's why you got to come, man.
That should be fun. During this episode later, we'll run your personal invitation from Kelly Knievel to the event, so stay tuned for that.
Yep.
Now, about that, the significance of Robbie's Caesar's bike, this is one of his best-known jumps. In 1989, Robbie Knievel, who's all decked out in his star-spangled leather suit, vaulted 150 feet over the fountains of Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And that was a tribute to his dad, Evel Knievel, who cleared those same fountains in 1967, only to land in a bone-crushing crash that horrified viewers, but also added to his worldwide fame.
I'm just saying, my dad's stuff was just the things he did back then. The Caesar's Palace jump was 120 feet. I jumped 150 with tighter circumstances on a better bike, but I go twice as high, twice as far, and hit the pavement twice as fast and twice as hard.
After successfully clearing those fountains, Robbie recalled, "When I made that jump, I said, 'Dad, that was for you.' And he ran up and hugged me with tears in his eyes, and I had never seen him so emotional." So clearly that motorcycle that Robbie used that day is an important part of the Knievel legacy.
Absolutely.
How did you find and authenticate that bike?
There was an early story along this journey about where it was and who had it and which one was legit. Basically, two different people were sold or gifted two different bikes, and both told that those bikes were authentic. And one of them is, and obviously a wheelie bike, and one of them is the actual jump bike that was used to clear the fountains. On those type motorcycles, on the Honda CRs, you can manipulate them. You can switch out the plastic even. I mean, and it was a crazy time, but I think our point in doing this is to back up the authenticity and the stories from not only Greg Duray, it's also part of the legend. And it's not just Greg Duray, because he's got all the paperwork and the serial numbers, and it all backs up. And Robbie, years later, I mean, there's a lot of players involved, there's this and that, but the other motorcycle was at Dr. Lonnie Hammergren's house in Las Vegas for many, many years. And, he thought he had the jump bike as well. So when he passed on, his estate sold the bike as the jump bike, but they don't have documentation. It's all on somebody's word. That's where we're starting from, basically. But Greg Duray, when I met him, he's a great guy, and he's honest as the day is long. He had the story that backed up, the paperwork that backed up his story. And, obviously, Bill Rundle, who's crucial to this, and Robbie, they they personally called Duray and said, "You've got the actual jump bike." So after Hammergren passed on, the secondary motorcycle machine was sold to a gentleman, and of course, I mean, what's he supposed to think? He's got to believe what he's told. And Lonnie Hammergren's word's as good as gold, but he was misinformed too. I mean, they're equally valuable motorcycles, not equally, but obviously one of them is more significant. But it's nobody's fault that these tales got twisted. So, and in going to Duray's, he finally decided to sell it, and Kelly and Paige stepped up, and Krysten acquired the motorcycle. So you and I obviously went there as liaisons and champions of the whole thing, just because authenticity is everything in this world, especially the Knievel world, because there's so many rip-offs and replicas and snake oil salesmen around the corner here and there. I think we established that is the actual jump bike at Caesars, and there's no question about it. And that the point of it being is that we solidify the fact that it is the proper bike for the legacy and for Krysten and for the Knievel family.
Yeah.
Greg, just tell me the whole story, as you have many times, about the conflict of the history of this bike, especially Robbie's bike.
Well, thanks, Lathan. My name is Greg Duray, soon to be former owner of Robbie Knievel's CR500 that he used at Caesar's Palace. The bike was acquired after Robbie used it for the jump in Caesars in Honolulu. It was acquired by a promoter named John Borba, who received the bike in lieu of payment for damage to one of the vehicles on the prior night of the Honolulu jump when Robbie crashed. John Borba, in turn, sold it to a guy named Dave Pyle. A good friend of mine, John Rossini, who lives in Pittsburgh, California, found the bike for sale locally in an ad of some sort. And he actually arranged the pickup of the bike, met Dave Pyle somewhere in the Sacramento area, and brought it back and helped arrange shipping to me here in Hoffman Estates. We acquired the bike, and it sat here probably for about the last 25, 30 years under a blanket. And it's good to see her out once again. And she's a bit dusty. Kind of hate to see her go, but we know she's going to the right place.
Yeah, are you happy about where it's going, to the museum?
Yes, you and I have talked for a number of years about the sale of this bike. I've had other people interested, and I think we just deserve in Robbie's memory to do it justice.
How did you start collecting?
Well, I was kind of a mixed-up teenager as a kid, and my dad took me to see the Evel Knievel movie at the Harlem Drive-In Theater back in the early 70s, and I kind of identified with him, and he would preach to kids. I have to actually give him credit because that's what turned my life around. His most famous saying was, "A man is a man of his word," and I've kind of tried to live by that. So yes, I idolized him as most kids did, but it was a life-changing event when I started to get into this, and then to get to know the family and acquire the bikes and so forth. That was just like a dream come true.
How old do you think you were when you saw the movie?
About 12, 13 years old.
To get a motorcycle as soon as you could, after seeing that movie?
Boy, you're reading my mind. It's funny you mentioned that. Yes, when I was about 12 or 13 years old, my dad bought me a Rupp Roadster 2 mini bike. A friend of mine had a restaurant with a vacant lot across the street. We built a big ramp with mud and bricks holding this up out of heavy-duty wood, and I remember his brother took his Super Glide up the ramp just to see if it would hold. It was rock solid. So we would jump. I jumped that thing so much, the shocks were crooked. And in the neighborhood, my mom used to get mad at me because I would take my new boots that she'd buy me. I always had to have boots. And I would put screws with nuts on them in the heels, and I'd drag my feet down the street doing wheelies for the neighborhood at night and shooting a spark show. As a kid, it was cool.
Did you go to the Chicago Amphitheater show?
It was called Cycle-Rama. And yes, I've been there twice for 2 of the years. One of the years was kind of famous because Evel jumped so high indoors. I had a picture of it. Like I said, it was very poor quality, black and white somewhere, but you could see his head ducking because he almost hit the lamps in the rafters. And he came down real far on the landing ramp that time, and I remember the bike on the concrete floor because it was so smooth, just fishtailing and so forth. He hung on to it, but it was quite entertaining.
And then The Shark Tank jump, that was in Chicago too. Were you here?
We were there.
You went?
I took my wife that day and we took off. We got there probably about 2 hours before the jump because it was general admission and we wanted to make sure we got good seats. We were the only ones there. We were waiting in the vestibule area. And I remember we heard a noise that sounded like a tractor. I thought maybe it's something getting ready for the jump. Again, nobody was in line or anything. And we didn't know about the practice jump. And my wife had to go to the bathroom, and one of the ushers took us around the backside indoors in the amphitheater. And in front of her, there was a stretcher wheeling somebody out. And we had no clue at the time what was going on. We thought it may have been a worker or something. So technically, I guess that was evil getting wheeled out after the practice jump. It's not a story I tell much, but we were there. We ended up getting seated, getting great seats. And about 10 or 15 minutes before the jump, they announced that the jump was not going to happen because he was injured in a practice jump. That was in Chicago. I lived in Niles at the time. We raced home and missed about 15 minutes of the show, got to see the rest of the show, got our money back, and that's the name of that tune.
Yeah, I'm just so surprised that the show, they knew he was injured and wasn't going to be there. They went ahead and sold tickets and popcorn and t-shirts.
Well, they waited until like 10 or 15 minutes before showtime. They said, if you get into the ticket office before showtime, get your tickets validated, you'll get a refund. And that's what we did. But yeah, watching the gurney go right out in front of us and not knowing what was going on was kind of weird. Right place at the right time. I just wanted one of the bikes. I was going to buy the Shark bike, and then it was so beat to shit, I should have grabbed it. He wanted $5,000, and I ended up buying one of Steve Eklund's Grand National bikes for $3,000, and it was running. So, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah, the main thing is there's been a lot of conflict with the history of which bike was the jump bike, which bike was the wheelie bike, especially in Las Vegas.
There was some concern, of course, when I bought it. The same concerns I had. I reached out to John Borba. We have some paperwork where he's indicating that this was the actual jump bike.
Because this is the only bike that has the actual documentation with the serial number and signed by Robbie.
I talked to the president of Desert Honda. I also have a letter from him with a serial number of this bike. It's one of two bikes that he sold Robbie in Las Vegas before the Caesars jump. We have a title from Borba. The title was later transferred to me in Illinois. And I have a plethora of documentation since Borba acquired the bike. There's been some questions about some of the identification of the bike, but these, when I bought this bike, the decals, all the vinyl lettering was flaking off and so forth. And there's kind of a telltale sign when you watch the Caesars jump, when they did the walk around on the bike, and also when on one of Robbie's practice runs, when he's backing down. On the left side of the bike, you can see he had this script with this R, this loop here. There's a significant piece of vinyl that was missing on that during the jump. And like I said, these have been faithfully recreated. They're exact, but if you were to remove this, you would see the fade mark from the sun bleaching all those years after that, where it was, I'd tell that was missing for quite some time. As nice as this bike looks, there is a bit of fade to it. This has the original blue handlebars and the protector here that was on the jump bike.
Can you recite the story of what Robbie relayed to you as far as the confusion?
Robbie called me one day just out of the clear blue. We would talk occasionally and so forth. And he said, Greg, I wanted to let you know that you have the actual bike. Because there was concerns on my part, because I knew there was a guy out west, I think he was a doctor, that had one of the other bikes. Robbie told me that there was a coin toss. This other person wanted to buy one of the bikes, and after the jump, they flipped, and Robbie won the toss. So he said he wanted to keep this bike. And later, the other gentleman asked if he can say that it's the original bike, and Robbie said, it's your bike, you can do what you want with it. I rode this bike one time in the school parking lot across the street. It was funny. If there's ever a rocket ship on two wheels, this is what it is. The parking lot, I remember when I did it, there was one solid black stripe across the parking lot, and half of the parking lot was a burnout. There was a little break of no rubber, and the rest was skidding to try and stop before I got to the other side. The bike, that was the only time I rode it. We took it up to Green Bay, as I mentioned before, to be part of Robbie's Jump and the 70s reunion up there. The Dukes of Hazzard guys were out there and everything. But after which time, I knew I wasn't going to be riding it or using it. A place called Schaumburg Honda, motorcycle dealer here right down the street. They went through, prepared it, winterized it, drained everything, and that's how it's set.
Do you have a motorcycle still?
I've sold all my street bikes.
Yeah.
It's too crazy out there.
Hey everybody, it's Kelly Knievel. I'm inviting you to Twin Falls, Idaho. This Labor Day, September 1st, Sunday. We're gonna have a big motorcycle ride across the bridge where my dad jumped the Snake River Canyon. Robbie Madison's gonna lead the parade, and we're all gonna end up in downtown Twin Falls for an evening of music. I'm gonna have my dad's Sky Cycle on display there. And the schedule and everything you need to know is at evilknievel.com. So we'll see you there.
So, what a guy. It was a beautiful day, Lathan. Sun was shining, birds were singing.
Yeah, Greg's great. Known him for years. He's one of the only bankers I trust. No, I'm kidding.
He kept that thing in just such pristine condition, and he was such a great fan, and it was so kind of him to open his house, his doors for us.
Yeah, we started talking about this bike probably 8 years ago when we met. He just cherished it and babied it, and it never saw a ray of sunshine since he acquired it. So it's immaculate.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was under a motorcycle cover. It seemed more like it was under a handmade quilt. I mean, it was just baby.
Grandma's quilt.
And it was hard for him to part with. The Knievels are about to show up, but I just wanted to point out that from the moment we rode up, which we preceded the Knievel family by a little bit.
Yeah.
Greg was drinking. It was hard for him to part with this thing, and it took a little bit of booze and some dollars.
Yeah. Greg was a little nervous, rightfully so. That was one of the classic moments when we showed up. Kelly, you got Kelly's line in there, I'm sure.
I think they start with, having martinis already? Without further ado, Kelly and the Knievels roll up.
You drink martinis in the morning.
God bless you.
Take a look at the bike. I want you to see it. Kelly, I have not uncovered that thing literally for 20 years.
Well, thank you for keeping your foot in shape.
These were the pictures that were sent to me before I bought the bike.
Okay.
How'd you find the guy that you got the bike from?
A good friend of mine, John Rossini, he found it in an ad. He lives in Pittsburgh, California.
Yep.
He's such a close friend. He actually found the bike. He paid for it with his money, drove 2 hours to go pick it up near Sacramento, and then helped me arrange shipping. And thanks to him, that's how this all came to be.
Oh, wow. So he got it from...
I bought it from a guy named Dave Pyle.
Right.
Who got it from Borba.
From Borba, okay.
He just called. He said, you know what? There's a Robbie Knievel jump bike out there for sale.
And you said, okay, I'll take it.
Damn straight.
All right.
Your father changed my whole life around. I was a mixed up teenager, and I used to, how he preached to kids, I listened to it. So
good. That's very good to hear.
You know, it's the truth. I know when Kristen saw it originally, she said right away, that's Dad's signature.
There it is. Looks just like it. Perfect match. Okay, legitimate. Okay, that's great. What else do we got? Show me what else we got.
I also have...
just in case the FBI investigates.
There you
So I want all paperwork. Of course, who can trust with the FBI investigation?
Full disclosure. Exactly.
Who knows?
This was the receipt from the person I bought it from.
Mr. Pyle.
Dave Pyle.
Okay, now this was your buddy, right?
No. My buddy's name was John Rossini. He just happened to see an ad from Dave Pyle.
Oh,
And
he saw Dave Pyle's ad.
And found it, yep.
And then called you and said, okay, let's get this. Okay, that's
when I acquired the bike, I heard he bought the bike from Desert Motorsports.
Yep, Desert Motorsports. We know this guy's brother is a friend of ours in Las Vegas.
He sold Robbie 2 bikes for the jump.
Yep, okay.
And he has a statement saying that this was the actual bike.
Okay.
This is a letter that Dave Pyle got.
I'm taking your word for it on the engine number.
It's all there. This is a letter that Borba provided Dave Pyle when he sold the bike to him.
Okay.
And we have State of California title.
Okay, this is from Borba?
Borba when he owned it. And on the back side, has it signed over to me.
Okay. So what else? He decided to tie, but Robbie must have owed him some money or something. All I can think of.
No, he did.
Yeah.
Because of the damage the night before the Honolulu jump, he landed short, and when he crashed and damaged one of the vehicles, he overtook the bike in lieu of payment for the damaged vehicle.
Okay.
I also have titles in mind. I thought you just wanted to look at the one.
No, we need the title, right?
Okay, I'll get that.
Okay.
Ever since Robbie let it go, we've got it all traced.
Great. So great.
Yes.
How do you feel about Krysten acquiring the bike?
Well, I'll tell you, that's even more touching. This bike, when I said it's been in storage, the last time it was out for display, we took it up to the Oneida Casino in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Robbie asked me to bring both bikes out there for a 70s reunion and his jump out there. And that was the only time I met Krysten and Robbie for the first time. And it was a great weekend. We had a great time. And, hearing her and having her reached out, I've watched her grow up through all the videos and so forth. And we're real happy about it. Like I said, I hate to see it go, but glad to see where it's going.
Yeah, Krysten, how do you feel about, your dad really wanted you to have this?
A lot of mixed emotions. Excitement for sure, but it's weird. It's weird to think that the last time I was in the presence of this motorcycle, I was a toddler. I was 3. So the fact that it's been sitting here for over 30 some years, and the entire time it's been like 30 minutes from me outside Chicago, it is also very strange. So yeah, it's a lot of mixed emotions. It's still really fresh because my dad just passed away, and I feel like the stars just happened to align, or maybe there was some divine intervention. Maybe he had a hand in it. I don't know, but the timing was right, and it feels good. Feels right.
There's a little bit of history and confusion with the 2 jump bikes, as there always are with the whole Knievel legacy, but
Yeah. My dad always had 2 bikes. He always had a backup bike.
talk about the one that was sold as unknowingly as the official jump bike.
Well, this bike has a lot of documentation to back up the claim that it's the actual bike, including a letter signed by my dad. And then I actually heard from my dad's manager too that they had a conversation before he passed away that he told him that this was the actual bike. So the other bike that was the competing bike doesn't have any documentation that we know of. Seeing my dad's signature on the paperwork, seeing the title, all the information, I feel really confident about it.
We're going to call Warren because he actually validated, before your dad passed away, he did tell Warren that this was the actual bike. There's no confusion. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Warren.
Hey, we're here. She just said her piece and we're going to load the bike up, but I told her that before Robbie passed, he actually did tell you that Duray did have the correct bike, the actual Shoeser's jump bike. Can you validate that?
Yeah, he said that to me.
When did you guys have the conversation? I'm just curious.
Oh, God. We tried to buy the bike back, remember? So,
Oh, right, I do.
yeah, so it came up a few times. I wanted to validate that, too. So, I haven't seen the bike. I don't know about the bike, but your dad said that that's the bike.
Okay.
That's what he said. That's all I know.
So we loaded up the bike and headed to town for Chicago Dogs and had a blast. But that was a big crew, man, between you and me and Duray and all of the Knievels, Kelly and Krysten.
Kristen's really good friend Frank, who was pretty much our gracious host. I believe he took us to Portillo's, which is some famous Chicago institution.
I wish I had recorded Frank more. That guy was a whole episode in himself.
Frank's a walking reality show.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did that.
Actually, so is pretty much every person involved here.
Oh, you're so right. We went out that night after we loaded up the motorcycle and got cleaned up a little bit. Went out and saw Krysten Knievel's Daredevil band. We rocked out that night, and it was fun. Then it had even more people show up, not for us and not for the motorcycle, but to see the band play at the bar, at this biker bar somewhere down there in Chicago. Got up the next day, and everything changed. When we recorded that, you could hear birds outside Duray's house.
Yeah, I think he lives on a bird sanctuary.
I'm so grateful that you had a friend in Kiwani because
the weather,
beautiful weather, had turned from, I don't know, 70 degrees to about 40 degrees. It dropped 30 degrees in 2 hours after we got on the road. It was hail and wind, and it just shredded the poor motorcycle cover that we had.
Yeah, the motorcycle cover turned into Swiss cheese, and we had to stop at AutoZone and buy an abundance of duct tape the following morning.
That helped to protect the bike while we were traveling, but still the roads were so bad that we pulled over, and you introduced me to Denny Packey and the gang, and they helped us unload the bike so it was stored safely overnight.
Yeah, the weather was so bad we had to store it in the back of Reman's overnight. And those guys took care of us as usual. Anytime I'm within proximity of Kewanee, Illinois, our super, super dear friends over at Roger Reman's old Harley Davidson shop, which is kept alive for Roger's legacy by the great, great, great Denny Packey and his son Scott Packey. And they treat us like gold, just like they treated Evil back in the day. If you're in town, you got to go visit those guys. There's a lot of history there with Roger and Evil. That's where the bikes were built, et cetera, et cetera. And also, since we're on the train of restaurants that are locally popular, what was Cherno's. That's where Denny always takes us. That's where Evil used to go eat with him with Roger all the time, and Denny. Then we started the arduous 9.5-hour drive back to the museum to once again safely store the motorcycle.
We should probably wait until next time to introduce a really fascinating character that we ran into while we were there. Mr. Packey said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to the guy that came up with the #1 logo, the ubiquitous logo that we see on Harley Davidson's and Evel Knievel's things."
Yeah, he was the first. There was ABC signs, it was brown signs. But I just said, Denny, get him on the phone. And the guy was there in, 20 minutes? It was pretty cool.
So great.
Yeah, you got a great interview with him as well.
Tune in for that to meet Bill, the designer of the #1 that's featured on all of our shirts and stickers and so much pop art. Amazing. Lathan, thanks again for joining me. It's so much fun to see you. You're in one part of the country and I'm in another, and
I'm in every part of the country. Get it right.
And I really appreciate and love how much care you take in preserving all of Knievel's items and building this museum for so many fans.
We'll see y'all in Las Vegas soon.
Until next time, buddy, stay fabulous.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. It's our mission to preserve and present the legacy of Evel Knievel. So if you have an idea for an episode or a guest, or have a suggestion to improve our show, just drop us a line at joe@thrill.show.
I just think the Evel Knievel way.
We leave you with the encouraging words from the book of Deuteronomy. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Until next time, happy landings.
You like to fly to the seat of your pants? This is where you belong.
Hey everybody, it's Kelly Knievel. I'm inviting you to Twin Falls, Idaho, this Labor Day, September 1st, Sunday. We're going to have a big motorcycle ride across the bridge where my dad jumped the Snake River Canyon. Robbie Madison's going to lead the parade, and we're all going to end up in downtown Twin Falls for an evening of music. I'm going to have my dad's Sky Cycle on display there, and the schedule and everything you need to know is at evilknievel.com. So we'll see you there.